Okay, so we are getting into the fun stuff today. We have probably got 2 sessions left on modelling a train. So in this one, we're going to do the details. And then in the final session, we're going to fill in the inside of the cab and put in kind of a boiler and some controls, which you might decide you don't want to do. That's the reason I'm doing this in this order. You'll know how you want to use your final model. But yeah, the detailing part is, for me, the most fun bit. I'm just going to switch my reference image over to... Let's use this one again for now. So we've got all these like pipes and handrails and little screwy things and valves and this hook on the front, and we've got all these rivets. So there's lots of details spring in, but actually the techniques are kind of the same across everything, and we'll be able to use a lot of the parts again. So yeah, as ever, there's some good techniques. The rivets are going to be fun to do. There's all sorts of ways that we can do that without having to manually place each rivet by hand, because we definitely don't want to be doing that. But this is the part that really kind of elevates your model forward. So I always like working on this part. So let's start with these handrails, and it's kind of hard to see what's going on, but we're just going to make them to our own design. So we might as well, just for ease, I think, well, let's have a look at our blueprints. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Yeah. So it looks like we could pretty much use this edge here. So let's just select these 4 edges, but Shift and D, and then P, separate by selection. So we've made this weird little line. Let's click on it properly. We'll just merge these to center. And merge to center again. And actually we'll just dissolve these. Okay, and let's match our length a bit better. So we could have just made a cylinder. That would definitely be one way of doing this. And maybe a quicker way, but we're going to use the same technique across all of our handrails. So I'm just introducing it now. It's the one that we've already used to do the pipe. So we've got this edge. So we're going to Object, Convert to Curve. Then we're going to hit Control and A to apply our scale. And then go down to our Data Object Properties here. And we're going to set our depth to... Let's have a look at our blueprints. You can pull this down so it lines up. That's looking about right. Maybe we'll just make it 0.1. And we're also going to choose fill caps, whoever he is, so that we've got a solid edge. Did you sign up for these awful dad adjacent buns? Okay, so we've got our guardrail, and it's already mirrored, but it's actually not mirrored in a useful place. So we'll just delete these vertices, and then we're going to add a modifier, search mirror, and we'll mirror using our chassis top. Okay, so what I want to do now is duplicate this and then go to Object, Convert to Mesh. And the reason that we've done that is I then want to pick up an edge loop here. So let's put one here. Let's have a look from our blueprints where it needs to be. Why didn't I just go to the blueprints to start with? And then we're going to bevel this until it's that kind of thickness. And I'm then going to hit P to separate selection. And we're just going to, let's make sure that we're working on the right one here. So, yeah. So we're going to delete this now. So what we've got is our original handrail, and we'll actually just call this handrail long curve. We should have been naming things a lot more than we are doing. So now we're going to take this and we're going to go into edit mode, faces, hit 8, select all. And then where we've got shrink fan, down here, we're just going to pull this out. So it's just going to create a little bit of space around it. And then we're going to make sure we are in bounding box center. So full stop bounding box center, Alt-E, extrude faces along normal. And we've got this kind of chunkier ring around it. And then let's select these 2 faces. And we'll pull down and in. And let's try and get them to adhere to the face of the train a little bit. So go into X-ray mode. Just make sure we're working on these 2 vertices. And we can pull these up. why doesn't that want to slide? We're going to have to do them one at a time. And if you want to push back in, if you tap G twice to slide up and then hold down the Alt key, you can extend back along the normal. So the only reason to do this is it just gives us a nicer kind of form against the, like you want to be able to see where things are joined and welded on. And if we just run it inside the geometry, you lose that detail. Okay, so we're now going to apply a subsurf and work out where we need to tighten everything up. So you want a loop cut here and a loop cut here. I'm losing my loop cut for some reason. I think it's auto merging. Let's just turn off auto merge. Yeah, strange. Okay, and then we're just going to sharpen here and here. So very rough, very quick. And depending on how fancy you want to get, you know, we could add in some extra details. So you could maybe just put like a little, go back to bevel. And then just sharpen up again. And it doesn't really add anything to it, but they're just all little details that show that you paid attention and that you care. Elevate your model, and you know, it's looking nice. Okay, so now we are going to take our, could use an array modifier for this. I think it's as easy to just do this by hand, to be honest. So we'll just slide these down and we can use our blueprints rather than guessing. Although you probably notice at this point, nothing I do is following the blueprints anymore. But hey, let's pull them down a bit more into place. So yeah, I think that's looking nice. And we will just merge these together. Very fiddly. So select those, hit Control and J, and then we're going to mirror as well. So back using our chassis top, set to the Y-axis. Okay, nice. Good start. So now we could just duplicate this to fill in this section here. So let's go to our side view. And the whole lot needs pulling out. So we can do that from the front view. Something like this. And we can actually just delete these vertices, I think. And slide this along to get to where we want to be. And this along. See, it's just easier than scaling along axes and stuff. And get some into place. And then we'll use this one. Or make sure you're in X-ray mode. Make sure you're selecting everything. I'll delete this one. Okay, and then we should just be able to rotate this on the, now our origin is nowhere near. So we're going to go to Object, set origin to geometry. There we go, you can see it's now aligned roughly on our center point. And then the nose do a little bit of moving. And let's just see if we can tunk these as well. This is where it's very tempting to just push it into the geometry. Turn off X-ray so we can see when we're going inside. I mean, after all of this, we're kind of pushing inside the boiler anyway. I think that's going to do the job for now. So we'll delete this one. And I'm actually just going to slide this slightly further down. And duplicate this one. Okay. So now let's do the one on the front. And the technique we're going to use for this is very similar. We're going to put a loop cut in just temporarily. But before we do that, let's use our blueprints to work out where this goes. It's kind of roughly there. We're just going to adjust our curve a little bit. So I'm just sliding these vertices because it doesn't quite match up with my blueprints, but I'm guessing that my blueprints weren't correct. And we'll just select these ones, loop tools, relax. Hasn't made a huge difference, but so we're going to select from there to there, and we're going to hit A, separate selection. And then if we go back into our original boiler, we're going to select our loop again, right click, dissolve edges. We don't actually want that as part of our mesh. So now we've got another curve. And we'll pull this forward. And you can see it's got a mirror modifier applied, which is fine. What I want to do now is just going to slide this up. I might right click and dissolve the vertices, and then we'll space this a bit more evenly. So right click, loop tools, space. Right click, loop tools, relax. It's maybe relaxing a little bit too much. Okay, you get the idea. And let's apply our mirror, and we can turn off our subdivision for now. And then we're going to convert to curve. And I'm going to right click and choose set spline type Bezier and set handle type automatic. And we should have a smoother curve now. And then we're going to do the same trick. So we'll remember that our depth was 0.1. It was 0.01 clearly. And we'll also just apply our scale. Okay, so now we've got a nice curved handrail. We'll right click and shade smooth. And if any part's looking a little bit weird or wonky, it's all dynamic. So you can just change, you could make any shape you wanted with this. And we want to cap our ends again. And then let's pick up these. Go bring this into the mix. And I just want to work with one, so I'll delete this one. Object, set origins geometry. So now we are rotating around the center of here. So we're going to rotate on the Z-axis, -90. And we'll pull this to here and then rotate. And now it's just going to be a little bit of faffing around to work out. Well, I think we've got that pretty good. Okay, so that's our handrails done. Let's save. And then we will start on the next bit. So we've got this little hook part at the front, and which I think is the hanging, like the lamp that shows the direction the train is traveling in. And we've got one here as well. So these should be pretty easy to do. So it's kind of, I don't think I've captured the full form in the blueprint, but we're going to use let's use our 3D cursor to here. And let's make a plane, rotate it, scale it down, and get it roughly into place. Let's see what our front view gets us to work with. Much better. Okay, so I'm just going to select this edge. I will extrude down. I think I'm just going to make the shape up looking at the reference. So something like this. We're going to pull this forward. I'm going to make a top rest. I mean, that is pretty much what we're dealing with here. To just tweak that height maybe a little bit more. Maybe it's a little bit too thick. Okay, and I think the best bet is just extrude it out. A bit more. And Alt and recalculate outside. Maybe not. It sucks everything. Recalculate outside. There we go. And I think I'd like this bottom part to be a bit more curved. That's probably the only extra thing I want. I think it needs to be a bit thicker too. So we're going to put in 3 loop cuts, and then we're going to select the bottom one. Then if we go to here and go to proportional editing and change the fallout to CF. And then if we pull this down, you see everything's moving at the moment because our radius is way too big. So I'm going to use our mouse wheel to scroll down. So make something this kind of size. It's still too big, but there you should see now we're starting to make a... So we're just going to adjust that until we get a curve. Nice. I was worried that looked a bit chunky, but I think in the context of the whole model, this should definitely be higher though. Yeah, let's work with that. So now we're going to apply a subsurf. Everything's going to get weird, but we're literally just going to put in loop cuts everywhere to sharpen it up. So I could have used bevel, but because we've got the curve at the bottom now, that's not going to fly. And you can decide if you want to sharpen these edges a bit more as well. So I just need one in here, I think. And one at the top. Not a nice exciting bit you're going to make, but we're also going to duplicate this and put it on the back. And that's going to apply to a lot of things that we make in this section. Object mirror on the x-axis, and then we'll just pull this back. And I think from our blueprints this is higher on the back. And oh yeah, we also need to just align this to the center because it's off center at the moment. So I'm going to set our object, set origin to geometry. So then it's going to be in the middle. And if we go to transform, we set our Y to 0. We're now in the middle. And let's just do the same on this. So object set origin to geometry and set our location to 0. And there we go. It should be in the center of the train now. So we use exactly the same technique to do this hook at the front. So this is a model train, a toy train, obviously. So the couplings on a real one will be more complicated, and they'd actually have a chain down the front. So I think we might quickly model that because it's nice and easy to do, and we know all the techniques now. So let's tab into edit this, and we will cursor to selective. That way we know we're already working on our correct axis. And we'll make another plane, scale it down. You'll notice that when we scale quite often it flips, and that's because we've actually scaled past ourselves and inverted it. So I'm just going to tab in, and then I want to move the face over slightly. So you'll see that our origin stays in the same place. And we're also going to turn off proportional editing because we don't want that anymore. So let's scale this down. I don't think our blueprint's going to show as much you saw. I'm going to pull this up a bit. Let's just flip it. So what we can do now is add a modifier on the y-axis, on the z-axis, sorry, and turn on clipping. And let's go into X-ray mode and just pull this forward. Okay, so now we just need to make a hook shape, which is not going to be hugely difficult. So let's put in a loop cut here, and another one here, I think. And then we'll bevel this on. And then loop cut. We can delete this face. And then we actually want another. Let's just scale this in. Scale this in. We'll delete these. I'll pop these down. Okay, so this is going to be our hook shape. And then we want to curve this edge as well. So let's do the same thing. Let's put in 2 loop cuts here, 2 loop cuts here. And then let's select this face, this vertex, and pull out. And you'll notice that as I increase it to make it work, it's moving these other parts as well, which I don't want. So if we select these faces and then hit Shift and H, and then we pull out. So we just need to tweak our mouse wheel until we get roughly the curve. I think that'll do. And then Alt H back, you'll see that everything else has stayed in the same place. Now we can turn off portion editing again. I might actually scale this a little bit as well. Yep, scale it on the Y to increase our curve. There we go, that's looking much better. And we'll pull this back. And, you know, we could maybe, should we bevel this? I think so. Control A, scale. That's flipped our faces annoyingly, but that's okay. So we'll select these 3, and we'll put a little bevel on. So we're just going to quad these out. J. And J again. And then we just need a loop cut here. And a couple of loop cuts here. Alt A and flip. And then if we just Alt Shift our way around, select this edge. Oh, we need to join these up as well. Make sure you got the tip as well. And then we're going to pull in, and clipping should do its magic. And then let's hit Control and 2, and things get a bit lumpy, but we've made everything with nice quads, so it's easy enough to sharpen up where you want. Again, you might want a little bit of more, not organic because it's metal, but you think about what this is, like it's hand beaten metal made by tools from years ago, so it's not laser cut. I think that's okay, kind of a bit softer. I'm actually going to delete these faces though, because we don't need them and it will give it a sharper edge. Right, so I'll come out of that. That's our hook. I could maybe make it a tiny bit bigger, but... And then let's put a chain on the front as well. So, just going to make like a 3-link chain, nice and simple. So, we could probably work from here. So Shift A, mesh, circle. And let's scale it down to maybe 12 will work for this. We're going to rotate it. And let's pull it so that we know the radius fits around that. Again, I don't think train fans that this is going to be super accurate. I know there's more to the couplings than just a simple chain. And sorry, I started talking. So we're going to delete half the vertices. I know there's more than a simple chain. It's often like a vacuum pipe that handles the braking and stuff. But I just want people to look at it and go, oh yeah, that's a train. So we've got half a circle. We're going to hit Shift and D and move down. And then we're going to go to mesh, mirror. Nope. Nope. Any of these going to work? There we go. Z. Of course it is Z. Sorry. I start making these in the morning and my coffee hasn't always kicked in. So we're going to join these with the F key. And we've got one link. And we're now going to go to Object, Convert to Curve. And we're just going to get this bit of depth again. So let's just come back to our trained context. But yeah, I think that looks about right. We don't want it to be super thick. And let's just pull this up and then scale it down a bit. Yeah, that looks good to me. Okay, so now we are going to duplicate. Let's apply a subsurf to it, duplicate it, and then we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And do the same thing again. So maybe just like 3 links on our chain. Let's have a 4. Looks a little bit weird, doesn't it? And obviously these should actually be, I think I want these to be slightly thicker, you know. So let's make the depth 2.2. 0.22, sorry. 0.25. Yeah, that's better. So we're just, there is a way of selecting these all at once, but I cannot remember what it is off the top of my head, and it's quick. It's just, we've got 4 links to deal with. And these can be rigged and you can do all sorts of stuff to make them look more natural, but I think that's going to do the job for us for now. So we're going to select all of these. And at the end of this project, we're going to have a fun time naming everything. I might break my rules and do that off camera. Because look, nobody named any of their files, but sometimes you need to hand them over to somebody else in a project team or whatever, and you need everything labeled up then. Okay, so that's the chain in place, and we've done our front coupling and we've done our lights. Let's put these pipes in here and this lever here. So let's go to our blueprints. So we're going to keep using curves, but I do find it's easier to make something from a single vertex to start with and then turn it into a curve. So let's just snap our 3D cursor to here for now, so we're roughly in place. And then we're going to Shift and A, mesh, add single vert. And then we're already in edit mode, so let's just roughly draw out this shape. And again, the trick is to shoot past where you need to be. And then this one runs all the way to the back. Like this. And we can just pull the whole thing in a little bit. So why is that not continuing all the way down R? So I think on my reference, I brought this plate out further, which we haven't modeled yet. We could just, according to my photos, that pipe goes straight into the cab, which makes sense. So we're going to do that instead. And then we're going to, let's apply the scale. It's very important before we do our vertexes. And then we're going to bevel this. So nothing's going to happen to start with until we change the vertices. And then we're going to get it kind of something like that. And then bump up. So now we've made that curve without having to mess about with curvy things. So you know the deal by now, convert to curve. And let's make our depth. 0.01 was working pretty well for us. I think maybe this should be a bit thicker. Like this looks right. And we're just going to reduce our resolution. No, we want our resolution on this at 4, but we're going to reduce our resolution here. I don't know if that actually makes any difference. No, it's not doing anything. So let's ignore that. Okay, and we don't want our caps turned on. And then we're going to convert this to a mesh because I want to make a simple shape here as well. And you'll notice that we have quite a lot of geometry now. It's not actually not too bad. I was worried we were going to have loads to deal with. So we're just going to put a loop cut in here, bevel it out, extrude faces along normals, And let's make a little kind of cap detail top and bottom. I could have beveled that so it was completely even, but I just want to add in some quick details. And we could also put a little collar in here. And we've got another shape that comes off this one. But I think I'd also like to just thicken the pipe slightly here, just to, I don't know, it just adds a bit of visual interest. So something like that. And then we'll apply our Control-2 to apply our subdivision surface. And we just need to whack in all our loop cuts in sensible places. And as ever, it's up to you how tight you want to make all of these little details. Like maybe it's quite nice to have a little bit of curvature like you've got on that, but I'd like this to be a bit sharper. And if it's looking faceted, we're going to right click Shade Auto Smooth. I think maybe I will just put a slight bevel on that. Yeah, that's better. Okay, so now we need to mirror this on the other side. Oh yeah, we're definitely getting there. I know I save a lot, but I've been using 3D software for years, and I've been using computers for a very long time, and I still just think they crash all the time. And although Blender's auto recovery is very good, I don't like to risk stuff, so we're just going to save incremental and then move on. So I might be a bit optimistic in thinking we're going to get all of these details done in like an hour session, but let's keep moving forward. So I think we've got another pipe. This is another reference that shows me, but again, at this point, it doesn't really matter. Like we're just kind of... So it looks like we have another pipe that goes inside and then one that loops over and into the boiler another way. So predictably enough, I'm just going to make something up. I think I did mark on the blueprints roughly. Yeah, so I've got one pipe. Although again, for some reason I've terminated it early. Not to worry. So we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make a add single vert, and it should already be inside the train. Make sure you're in vertex mode. If you want to get that and you extrude and you don't see anything happening, it's because you're in edge mode, not vertex mode. And because you've only got one vertex, you can't select an edge or something like that. Okay, so something like that. Might just pull this a little bit further forward because we know we've got to loop this other pipe over the top of it. And then we're going to apply our scale and use our bevel again. And we're just going to bump up the segments so we get something a bit more curved. Object, convert to curve. I have no idea what we use as the depth here, but well, I call it something like that. And we don't need to make any geometry changes to this, so we're just going to right click and choose Shade Smooth, and we should be good. And then this one, we need, I think because everything's so small, we could probably get away with not making, how do I want to do this? Let's select this edge and then go, in fact, if we select the top edge and the bottom edge, and then choose Shift S, cursor to selected, and then go make a mesh circle. And again, I think 12 should probably be enough for this. And then we're going to rotate on the 90. So what we've done is we've put the anchor point exactly in the center so we can make this kind of collar part that sits over the top. And I'm just using different techniques to just kind of show you different ways of tackling things. Because we could have extruded out an edge loop. We could have made an edge loop and then separated it and turned that into this. But they're all different ways, and one of the best things about Blender is the fact there's always different ways to tackle things. So let's do something like this, and we'll select both of these edges, hit the stop key and choose individual origins, extrude and scale. That just stops it bringing the edges inwards as well. And I think actually we want to make this much thicker than I have done, so we're going to select these edges now and scale out like that. That's better. And let's put a bevel, let's put a loop cut in the center and let's bevel it. So it's evenly spaced, and then we'll set both of these and bevel again. And extrude along normals, let's go out. And then we have this detail here. Let's see if there's an easy way of cutting the hole in it. I don't know how much it's worth worrying about, but we're here now, so let's do it properly. So we're going to bevel this loop cut now. We'll make another edge. And then we're just going to select these 4 faces. Then we'll select all of these. And we're going to inset it. And then we're going to right click, choose loop cut, circle, and scale it. And then bring it up. And we're also going to scale it on the Z-axis. So it's not perfect, it's a little bit messy, but if we apply our subsurf, it also gives us something that looks a little bit like a genuine welded section. And we'll put a loop cut in here. I think that's okay. So now let's select these faces. And we'll extrude up. And we'll make a little inset. And again, I know I keep saying this, but it's always worth thinking about how far away you're going to be looking at this object. If this is a hero object, like this is the sole focus of the camera and the scene. If you're making a beautiful advert selling pipe division centers, or whatever this is, for trains, then you need to do a better job than this. But if it's literally, and we zoom out, if it's literally going to be that big, I wouldn't worry. Okay, and then I want the pipe to be able to go into this, so I'm going to extrude down, make 1 loop cut, then extrude again. It's not on the Z-axis. And I think we'll just delete that face. Okay, and then with this edge selected, Shift S cursor to selected. And then we're going to make another vertex. So Shift A, mesh, add single vert, hit the 1 key, and then we're going to hit E to extrude on the Z-axis and pull it up. And we just need to make sure we've got room for everything. So we might need to move that other pipe, and then we're going to pull this back. Like this, and then down. And then we're going to pebble. So I can already see that this needs pulling in a little bit. So I'll just tweak that. And I think we've got a little bit more height available, maybe. Maybe not. So maybe this part needs to come down a bit more. And then we're going to convert to curve. And put some depth on it. And it's actually bigger than our inset there, so it needs to be something like that. Shade smooth. So we just need to make sure this continues all the way through, which it does. And we don't have any of these details on the other side at the moment, so let's add our mirror modifier. Moving on the right axis. It's kind of cool, but just checking with everything. Yep, nice. Okay, so the next bit to tackle is this. I think this is like the regulator lever. I think it's the control that comes from the cockpit or the foot plate for setting the speed of the train. So it's a bit of a weird shape. It's like a long lever that bends around these parts, but it also, I don't really know how it joins. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a cylinder. I'm going to start with a circle. Actually, I'm going to have a 12 vertex circle. So let's get that into place. And again, I'm just improvising a shape because I really don't know what it should be. It doesn't need a huge amount of height. It's maybe a bit thick. We're going to select everything and scale it down a bit. Something like this. And then I'm going to put a loop cut in the middle and bevel it. And then what I want to do is take one edge. Let's delete these faces first. So it's going to pull out of here. You take one edge and extrude on the x-axis. So this shape kind of goes in and it bends around this pipe. So there's no right or wrong answer to this. I am making it up as I go along. So it looks like it kind of curves. And then goes straight-ish back in between these other pipes. Something like that, I think. And we'll need to move it up and down to make it fit, but we will tackle that afterwards. So I think that's looking about right. So we'll just go into edit in solo mode and we're going to select these vertices and add a few ends, give it a bit of depth. And then we're going to select this edge. And let's go into our top view. I think that will help us. And we're going to extrude on the y-axis. And we're going to keep that edge selected because we want to try and get it. So keep going on the y, something like that. And let's just go into our X-ray mode and make sure we've got the vertex selected. Then this one, merge it last. Okay, and then we're going to put in 3 loop cuts so that we can then merge here. So X-ray mode, merge it last, and guess what? You can also, if you hit Shift and I, it will repeat the last action. So there you go. And then we're going to select Control Shift from one end to the other. So we get this. And then we're going to extrude down on the Z-axis. And it's done that thing with our faces, but that's all right. We'll just fill her in by hand again. Yours might not have done that. So we're going to get somewhere like this. And I think if we now hit A, select everything, merge by distance, and we just bump this up to, let's say 0.1, no, we'll start off. So just keep an eye on this remove vertices count at the bottom. There we go, 5. So now that's welded in. And yeah, annoyingly, we've lost this part. So we'll just do this again. So I think it's because we've got flip normals along the way. And so we need to put in our 3 loop cuts. And let's merge our vertices again because we've got those edges to connect. There we go. And then we're just going to finish off by quadding these. And this. And this. And then let's turn on our subsurface, see how we're looking. So that's kind of joined in nicely. I want to sharpen this edge up a bit. And before we go any further, let's recalculate outside. And let's also, we need to bring this height down. It's too thick. So we select all of these edges. That should be everything we need. Except we need these top ones as well. In fact, an easier way would be to turn off our subsurf for now, put on X-ray. We're going to delete these faces at the end. And snap to the side view. And then if we select, just bring this down so it's quite a thin bit of macula now. And we should be clear of all of our pipes. Just about. We could move the whole thing down a little bit. Okay, let's put our subsurf back on again. And I'm just going to put a loop cut in here and here to sharpen those edges up. I think we're going to need to do the same thing on the other side. And then we'll just add some little details to this. So back into boundary box center. Oh, that's quite nice actually. Maybe we'll do that. And then we'll pull this up and scale. And let's do it again. And then hit M to merge at center. I'll put in our loop cuts to sharpen these edges up. And right click shade also smooth. So, you know, a bit of unnecessary faffing about, but it's given us this little detail properly. I actually don't think it's mirrored on the other side. I'll leave that up to you to decide if you want to mirror it, but I think there would only be one lever doing that. So it's possible that that shouldn't be there either. I can't decide. No. We could also just add a little something here to house this in a bit better. So if we inset and then extrude, and then inset again, so we're pretty much on the edge. Inset one more time, and maybe we haven't got enough, oh yeah, I've got enough detail. And then extrude down again, and there you go, it's kind of sitting inside the space now. Okay, let's get some easy wins under our belt, because we know we've been working hard and deserve some easy stuff. So we're going to tab in, select this, and then select this edge here. I'm going to hit Shift and D to duplicate, right click to keep in place, and then P, separate selection. And we've already got our mirror on, we've already got subdivision, so we're good to go. So I'm just going to select all and just pull this slightly away from the surface. I'm going to hit E to extrude and S to scale. So I'm going to make like a porthole size. It's actually quite big looking at the reference. So something like that. And then we're going to select both of these edges and extrude back on the X. Let's just solo in so we can see properly. So we're going to need to sharpen up, not that, sharpen up this and this. And then let's also make a loop cut here. And then we'll just Control Shift our way around. Alt E, extrude face along normals. Not that much. Like that. And then we'll sharpen up again. Right click shade also smooth. And if it's looking a little bit faceted, we can bump up our levels as well, because we did only use 12 circles for that part. Okay, and then I'm going to shift it. I might actually just scale it out a little bit on the... I'll change this to individual origins, and we'll scale out on the... we're going to set our origin to our geometry. That will help. We'll need to mirror again, but that's okay. And we're going to scale out on the x-axis. There we go. Just make it a little bit thicker. And we'll actually use our chassis as the mirror now. So I'm going to duplicate this, pull it back. And because we've got a mirror on, it's already I made those on the practice run. Ignore that. Pretend that this didn't happen and that everything you're seeing is for the first time. Little trade secret. Sometimes I have to just try a couple of things out to make sure that they're going to work smoothly on the video before I hit the record button. And sometimes it still doesn't work out smoothly. So we just want to get this over the window properly and make sure that you're moving this in edit mode rather than object mode. Otherwise your mirror point's going to move as well. Okay, front and back porthole windows done. Let's have a look at this like clock face detail on the front, on the boiler. So let's select these two vertices, which weirdly I've already got selected. Cursor selected, so that we're now working on top of this bit. And then we're going to make a new circle. And I think it would be helpful to have a decent amount of geometry. So let's go 18 vertices. And we're going to rotate. And we're going to put it somewhere like this. And then I'm just going to extrude out somewhere like this. And I'm going to go Shift S, cursor to select it again. And I'm going to set our origin to the 3D cursor. Then we're going to add in a mirror modifier on the Z axis. And now we're just going to solo mode. I just want to put in a couple of loop cuts. And we're going to scale this one down quite a bit. And this one a little bit more, a little bit less even. You can see from the reference, it's kind of rounded. And then we'll just extrude this in a little bit. In fact, let's cap this face off now. So on the extrude, merge at center, and there you go. Put on our subsurf. Yeah, nice. So we'll just turn it off for now. And I'm going to pick up, how many of these faces do we want? You're going to have to see, I think, yeah, 3 is, there's a reason that we used 18 faces, and that's because it gives us 3. And we just need to see if this is going to be too thick. No, I feel like that's about right. So we're going to go out of edit mode, solo mode even, and view our train properly. And this pulls down to about here. So now let's apply our subsurf. Oh, we've already got one, we just need to turn it back on again. And things are pretty weird right now, but we're just going to add in our loop cuts to smarten it up. And the reason you can't see the loop cuts on the front is because because it's a mirrored object, we're working on the back. We also just need to turn on clipping, which I haven't done. So we're just going to select all of this edge. You can see there's like a little seam. So we just need to make sure we've got all of these edges selected. And then we're just going to pull this, turn off clipping to start with, pull it back, turn it back on again. And it should now merge better. So we can just pull this up a bit higher. We've got something weird going on. Let's just check to see if we've not got any extra edges or anything. Let's merge, select everything, merge by distance. No. It's all good. For some reason our clipping, it's because we've got these extra faces here. So we're just going to delete these. And then turn our mirror back on, and now you can see we've got a nice smooth join. So I think that's probably good enough for this. So I might just scale it out a little bit on the X, so it's a little bit chunkier. And then we're going to duplicate this, put it forward. And before we rotate it, let's select these vertices, pull up on the Z. And then rotate slightly on the X, so you get that clock face effect. I think these are like almost like pressurized handles like you'd have on a submarine or something for opening the boiler door. Okay, and now let's do the guardrails at the back, which you know is super easy. So cursor to selected. Let's make a circle. We'll go back to 12 faces. I'm going to scale it right down. Whoops, that is not what I wanted to do. Let's just put it over a little bit. And then tab into edit, ease extrude down. I think I need to get a new keyboard. I keep mishitting things on this keyboard. Okay, just make sure I've got everything selected and then ease extrude down. There we go. It was worth the wait, wasn't it? And then right click shade auto smooth. And we might actually, let's just bump up our smoothness there. And then go Shift D and duplicate this. And then we'll select this edge and pull up. Actually, smooth the whole thing back a little bit. Great. And then we just need to mirror these two. So we'll select both of them, add modifier, search mirror. And we use our chassis point. And you can see it's mirroring on the wrong axis at the moment. And remember, annoyingly, you can't apply to multiple things in one go. But we can now hit Control and L, copy modifiers, and we've got both of those. Okay, let's save and move on to the next section. So I hope you're hanging in there with this, because I think this is the kind of stuff that's fun to model when you're working on your own and you know what you're doing and you've got some music on and you're kind of in the zone. But having every step explained is maybe not super fun, but that is what I'm here for. Okay, so let's do these whistles, or whatever they are. They're going to be very simple. Unsurprisingly, we're going to start with a circle. Let's use this anchor point on the roof to get us started. Cursor selected. And we are going to make, okay, I don't know why I've flipped up here already. We're going to make a circle. At 12, I think, yeah, for this shape's going to be absolutely fine. So let's get that roughly to size. And honestly, I've got so few pixels to work on that the shape is going to be whatever I fancy it being. But I think I actually did try and recreate this in quite a lot of detail in the blueprint. So let's get it kind of to size. And then we're just going to extrude and scale. So E to extrude, S to scale. And then for things like this, I prefer to make a loop cut essentially where it needs to be, and then we will extrude our depth out. I'm going to scale this one, extrude again, extrude again. And if we go into X-ray mode, with a couple of faces, and we should be able to hit E to extrude all normals. Like that. And we'll do the same here. So we will now recalculate outside. And let's just cap off the top properly. We didn't X-ray our faces there. So we'll fix that. I could undo it, but I'll show you how to fix it in case you, like me, you didn't notice it until too late. So let's merge at center. So we'll select all of these and we'll use our more shortcut to expand it out. And let's dissolve faces. And then we just need to join these back up again. So I'm just using the J key, not the F key, remember? And then, as soon as we're in 3D view now, we can work all the way around. Alt E to extrude faces along normal. And there we go, we're back to where we need it to be. So if we put the bevel modifier on this now, and we'll reduce our amount quite a lot, and bump up our segments. And then if we increase the angle, so decrease the angle, and then apply our subdivision surface, Okay, so now we're going to add our subdivision surface. And everything's going to break. And we're just going to put in our loop cuts again. In fact, I think about, let's just undo that. A better way would be to Alt-Shift these edges. We'll just turn off subdivision now so we can check that we're selecting the right bits. And this one. And we've got a couple of inside ones too. And if we just manually bevel these, and then apply our subdivision, we're going to need one on the top here. And I like this to be a bit more painted. Yeah, I think that does the job. Seeing if I've missed any obvious bevel points. Yeah, we could continue to sharpen up if we needed to. Yeah. Okay, so that's the first whistly bit done. I might actually... Sorry, I'm really sweating a small detail here that doesn't matter, but you just select all of these and bring it in a bit. I'll put another look in there. I just don't really like the shape of that. That's better, I think. That really matter, Tom. That's time well spent. Oh, accidental name reveal for anyone that's made it this far into the tutorial. Okay, so let's actually... I was going to duplicate this and use that to make these, but I honestly don't think it's worth it. So let's have a look at the blueprints. So on mine, I made one, but there's clearly two here. That's okay. So I think we're going to make this the last part of this chapter because we're coming up on an hour again now. And I think an hour is the right amount of time for anyone to be working on anything without having a break. So we will do this detail and then we will pick up in the next lesson and finish off our detailing. So I think this is that part. Yeah, that fits nicely. So again, we've got our blueprints here. So let's extrude up and start on this part. Let's make that a little bit smaller. And same detail here. So we're just extruding every time we're going to make a kind of external extrude. And for this part, I'm going to inset with the I key. It's a little bit hard to see here, so we might just go into X-ray mode. I literally can't inset because there's no faces there. So we're going to extrude and scale instead. And then extrude down, extrude and scale again, extrude down. So I need to scale a little bit more. Close enough. Okay, so this is a pretty mad shape. I must have gone a bit insane whilst I was working on this bit. So in X-ray mode, let's select all of these faces. Extrude along normal. And then we're going to do this. Yeah, we do want to do that one. So when you're in X-ray mode, you've got these little squares or little dots. And as long as you don't select those, then you'll only select the faces in the zone, if that makes sense. So just make it a bit easier to select. And we're going to have to do something different with this bit, but let's extrude out for now. So I'll follow the reference because I think 2 could look cool. We just need to cap this off as well. So E to extrude and scale, and then M to merge at center. My vertices get very busy looking on screen because I'm working on a high resolution for YouTube. So I'm not going to do any subsurfing yet because we need to work out how we're going to connect these up. So let's join them together. And then I think if I take these 4 faces and extrude on the default extrude axis, and then we'll do the same thing here. and extrude back. And if we delete these faces, and delete these faces, and then if we go to edge mode and select both of these, this might work. Right click, loop tools, bridge, it did work. And then we could actually just, we could remove these, or I'm just going to slide them down and use them because we're going to use them as edge loops. And then let's do the same thing. I have no idea how this functions, if this would work with my bit of design, but, and then let's just pull it towards here. And for now, you see, I said for now, but let's do it properly. So we'll have that part touching. And then let's just pull these edges in a little bit. Yeah, it's close enough. Okay, so let's apply our subsurf and watch things get weird. Let's put a loop cut in at this end, tighten that up. I don't need to explain what I'm doing here now, do I? Can have 20 seconds respite from my voice. And just alternate between them so I make sure that they're fairly consistent. Obviously we could have done our loop cuts on one, worked out where we were going to save parts, but we didn't. So what are we going to do? We're just going to deal with it. And I could have beveled these edges like I did before, but I'm halfway through doing the job now. It's nearly done. You know, the longer I take to do anything on YouTube as well, the more ad revenue I could potentially make. We're talking a sweet euro a day at the moment. So if you can never reach me, it's because I'm at the gold helicopter showroom cashing in my massive YouTube earnings. Okay, so there we go. We've got our whistle detail as well. Things are looking nice. I think this is a good point to leave this video. We've literally got this weird sprockety thing, which we're going to use in part for that. And then the rivets, and then the external detailing is all done. So we can get that, and the internal, whatever the train equivalent of a cockpit is, a footplate. Cab sounds right. Let's go with cab. We can get that finished. So I think we've got one more session, and then we can move on to texturing.